This is VITALS, Visionary Health Leadership in Action.
Welcome everyone to another episode of VITALS Podcast. For the newcomers tuning in, VITALS is an open forum to discuss our nation's biggest healthcare problems and to hear from leaders who are using the VITALS tools to solve these problems at a local and national level. VITALS stands for Value-Based, Innovation, Technology, Advocacy, Leadership, and Service. Neomed's VITALS is a monthly health leadership series in collaboration with university hospitals. Joining us today to share insights on innovation in healthcare to address social determinants of health and other topics is Dr. Daniel Simon. Dr. Simon serves as the President of Academic and External Affairs and the Chief Scientific Officer for University Hospital Systems of Cleveland.
Well, it's truly an honor and a privilege to be here today. It's so nice to be amongst friends. Our relationship with Neomed is growing. And I want to speak to you today very briefly in 17 minutes about harnessing research to address unmet need. Why is research important? Research is important because it's really all about hope. It enhances health system differentiation, but most importantly, it offers hope for patients who have no options. It creates competitive advantage for health systems by attracting patients seeking cutting-edge care, new drugs, new devices, new cell-based therapies. These are very important for patients with difficult medical problems, but they're also important margin generators for health systems that need that to fund research. Research improves healthcare outcomes by implementing evidence-based practices, and most importantly, it is the basis of our attraction of healthcare leaders, physician scientists, researchers, innovators, industry partners, and trainees. It produces important intellectual property. It drives philanthropy. And importantly for communities, every dollar invested in research creates $2.6 of return on investment. It has enormous biomedical system ecosystem impact.
Medical research plays a crucial role in advancing our understanding of diseases and developing innovative treatments that could potentially change the lives of patients. So what exactly are the key elements you need to have successful research?
Now, just some key ideas about how can you organize research. And I want to give a few very simple lessons. The first, you need a strong mission statement. To heal, to teach, and discover is ours. Obviously, this is about discovery, but it's this vision of advancing the science of health and the art of compassion that is so important. We are driven every day by the notion that we want to be a next generation academic health system dedicated to accelerating discovery, innovation, and translation of scientific breakthroughs which address unmet clinical needs and enhance the lives of our patients, our community, and the world. This is not research for grant attainment only. It's not research for publications. It's research to make a difference for our patients. Now, a lot of dollars are involved in research. We are continuing to grow, and our total research portfolio will be closer to $200 million in 2023. A lot of faculty are engaged, over 1,100. 3,400 plus clinical trials now, 1,200 residents and fellow trainees producing a lot of good work, over 1,200 peer-reviewed publications with over 1,800 medical students, M3s and M4s rotating through our health system. Now, why is research also important? It elevates your health system. In the only global ranking by UK Brand Finance of clinical research and education, UH soars through these rankings to be ranked 25th in the globe, 11th in the US. So research is very important for bringing profile to your health system and for attracting physicians. Now, what's a must-have? Lesson number 2, do research that impacts clinical activities. The second one is you have to be really focused. And this is a call out. You must have a strategic plan. And I call out the great Tom Enders and Alex Morin from Anat Health. We have engaged with them now 4 times in our health system to drive a strategic plan, to focus, to measure, and come back and renew. And this is very important. You must be guided by a clear strategic plan.
Addressing health disparities and gap in treatment requires complex solutions, and you can't do it by yourself, so partnerships are key. Also, recruiting researchers with the potential for high-impact studies and letting them build a team can help advance research.
Strategic partnerships are key. They're citywide, they're statewide, and they're global. And you'll hear momentarily about how these partnerships are so important. Research is a team game, and you need great partners to be able to succeed. Alignments between health systems and medical schools are critical. We have a joint strategic leadership committee that minds this relationship between UH and Case Western. We have a joint strategic operating group that manages that relationship between UH and NeoMed. Having senior leaders at both finance levels, operational levels, and research levels is very important, because ultimately, what is it all about? Alignment for recruitment. It's all about the people. It's also important to point out that the full spectrum of research is required. You cannot focus only on basic scientific discovery. You must translate that. You must do clinical research. And then very importantly, we impact our community and the world through health services research and health implementation science. And in a few minutes, I just want to go around this wheel and show you great examples of how this really affects patients. Of course, one thing that's really important that I talked to you about is in this strategic plan, focus is very, very important. You cannot be great at everything. And our focus areas include brain health, cancer and immunity, imaging, rare disease in a partnership with Oxford, and cardiometabolic disease. Of course, we will fund activities outside of this, but the bulk of our investment are in these areas of focus. And it's very important to point out, it's great to be aligned with your medical schools in these same centers of excellence areas. The third lesson, the importance of building research teams. Science is no longer the single funded R01 scientist. It's all about bringing teams, tremendous teams that have come together. Peter Pronovost and Marley Miller for health services research with PCORI, our very own Grace McComsey, the PI of the CTSA-CTSC that NeoMed is now on, a $62 million grant focused on clinical research. A second grant related to pathways of injuries in Barrett's carcinogenesis, $13.5 million, and a vision center and a core grant for $3 million. These are taking investigators together, dozens of investigators, under the principle that a team can accomplish more than an individual. Now, let's just take a peek quickly at basic and translational research. I want to give you a great example of work that Jordan Winter has done, a surgical oncologist studying pancreatic cancer, who identified a very specific target, IDH1, in pancreatic cancer. This is a cancer that has a 5% 5-year survival rate. But what's important about Jordan's research is he did not stop at identifying this target. He goes along to start a clinical trial, partnering with the Gateway Foundation and donors to try this new therapy based on his target in 12 patients, going from bench to bedside within 12 months. Truly a phenomenal observation that he's been able to make and then translate that right to the bedside. Now, also want to show you again this concept of team, the importance of teams. MRI Research Center of Excellence, MRI fingerprinting, a way to use MRI to virtually do virtual histology of tissues being applied from brain tumors to breast cancer now, prostate and pancreatic. This group has come together, tremendous partnership with Siemens and the National Institutes of Health to have over $42 million in funding related to cancer imaging, diagnosis, prognosis, and follow-up. And those are the kinds of examples that we strive to support as a health system.
Success in today's research landscape requires more than just the traditional funding. It needs augmented revenue streams for academic activities and creative thinking.
Now, one of the things that I've talked about is this gap between basic discoveries and actually bringing them to the bedside. And how do we do that? I want to share with you a very intentional effort that has really separated our health system from many others related to breakthrough discoveries into new medicines, creating new drugs. And that's the Harrington Project for Drug Discovery and Development. It combines very important nonprofit models with for-profit investment partnerships to commercialize new drugs. It's virtually unique when it was developed over 11 years ago, because 11 years ago, it was very unusual for nonprofit health systems and even medical schools to have venture funds. And now everyone has a venture fund, but it's hard to do. I want to share just a little bit of that with you. We have 4 centers of focus in the Harrington Discovery Institute: a major disease center for cancer, cardiovascular, and neuroscience, a brain health medicines group, a group that was focused just on COVID-19, and a rare disease effort predominantly with Oxford in the UK. Now, what is the principle of this? The principle is failures in drug discovery. You need many, many, many shots on goal to get a drug into phase 1 clinical trial. Over 90% don't make it to phase 1 trial. And then as you go through phase 1 to phase 3, further failure rates as high as 80 to 90%. We source projects, the best drug targets from around the country in the Harrington Discovery Institute. Our secret sauce is this therapeutic development center that helps milestone-based investigators to take these discoveries into things that actually can be brought into the clinic. We invest in them, we de-risk them, and then we pass them off by licensing agreements in pharma to accelerate discovery. Well, how have we done? In the past 10 years, we have funded 177 new drug investigators from 64 institutions in the country. We've launched 36 companies. We have 19 medicines in the clinic and 13 licenses to pharma. In my own case, Kaleida Therapeutics, a NewCo that spun out as a consequence of research funded in my laboratory related to inflammation, is now humanizing a monoclonal antibody, the ones like you see on TV, Ocrevus, Humira, and others, to bring to patients for a variety of indications. This is a long, expensive road, but academic medical health systems have to be involved in accelerating the generation of new medicines.
But what about clinical research, which is what many people think about when they hear medical research?
And I want to share with you an amazing example of our very own Dr. Mehdi Shishabur, which is that in the United States, we have over 50,000 amputations per year. Once you have an amputation, typically as a consequence of diabetes, your 2-year mortality approaches 50%. Dr. Shishabur is one of the most skillful physicians in being able to reestablish blood flow and prevent amputation in a technology called LymphFlow that was approved by the FDA 2 days ago and garnered Dr. Shishabur a first author paper in the New England Journal of Medicine reporting on the success of this incredible technology. Now, research is all about the people, and we have an incredible Pied Piper in Dr. Dan Spratt, the youngest professor ever at the University of Michigan, a radiation oncologist who he recruited. He was a former MMA fighter and bodybuilder who went into medicine because he was a physical therapist. And one of his patients who was a doctor said, you should think about going to medical school. And Dr. Spratt has just lit a fire in radiation oncology. Grant funding is soaring. And Dr. Spratt just published a very important paper about using AI in the treatment of prostate cancer to decrease complications in prostate cancer. This is the wonderful research that you can have when you recruit great leaders and you support them to bring amazing individuals along.
Ultimately, research should positively impact the community and patients. So how do you do that?
There's a tremendous gap in getting approved technologies, vaccines as an example, which have been approved, but to get people to actually use them. That type of research is called health services research or health implementation science. Dr. Eli Sadi received a $12.5 million grant that was just $18 million to study why is there limited use of vaccines in very important communities. And you can see here, the Corbett's grant is looking at social determinants of health to look at vaccine effectiveness in areas of health disparities and inequities, mostly in underrepresented populations. This is a consortium of researchers who are coming together saying, we have these vaccines. RSV vaccine took 55 years to develop. It is now approved by the FDA. How many seniors over 60, how many pregnant women in the third trimester are going to get this vaccine? And if not, why not? That is health services research. Now, to conclude, I want to stress the importance of the fact research is a team sport. There are a lot of people behind this effort. And when you build these research efforts, it's important to be sure that this is adequately supported. This is the team that runs the UH Research and Education Institute, that manages this $200 million research portfolio, that manages our 1,200 residents and fellows and our 1,800 medical students. They do a great job, and I thank all of them for their hard work every day. The other thing that I want to point out, though, is that we have to also think about pursuing new sources of research funding. Of course, we rely on the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Defense, the National Science Foundation, PCORI, HRSA, and AHRQ. But we have this wonderful, wonderful team of foundation and state and other federal grant writers that come together to support our researchers. They look for RFPs. They help them write their grants. They come together to support them. And in 2022 alone, this small but mighty group was responsible for $35 million in grants attainment. And this year, it looks like it's going to come in over $45 million. So thanks to them as well. Social media, your marketing teams are critical. And of course, we have a great one behind us, as you do here as well. Now, the final lesson, I think maybe lesson number 5, is this issue that the academic mission requires enormous investment. And for the leaders who are listening, I want you to know that if you look at the AAMC, no matter how good you are in research, the average investment per dollar of research that you receive is another 56 cents in addition to the indirects that you receive. While UH has been growing its research portfolio to $200 million a year, the investment of the health system has come along with it, investing over now $200 million in 2022. So what are the key take-home messages for today? Academic medical centers should be dedicated to accelerating discovery, innovation, and translation of scientific breakthroughs to address unmet clinical needs that will enhance the lives of our patients, our community, and the world. Grant attainment, publications, and H-index is not enough. You have to go from bench to the bedside. And when you're at the bedside, you have to make sure that these incredible discoveries are getting into your patients. You need focused commitment, strategic planning, metrics, and centers of excellence. You need recruitment of diverse faculty to promote team science through collaborative and interdisciplinary efforts. And the other thing to understand is that research will help you augment revenue streams for your academic activities. Federal foundation industry grant support will lead to intellectual property and commercialization that ultimately has promise for incredible royalty and equity streams. And of course, grateful patients make incredible donors, and they love giving to research. So it's an important driver of philanthropy as well. So the take-home message is it takes a team to make research happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone that tuned in to this episode of Vitals Podcast. Be sure to catch our next episode. Also, visit Neomed's YouTube channel to see the full 1-hour Vitals presentation with Dr. Simon, including the audience Q&A, which is moderated by Monica Robbins, Senior Health Correspondent at WKYC in Cleveland. Until next time.
This is Vitals, Visionary Health Leadership in Action.